Hello, everybody. It's Aaron here from the Phantom Portals podcast, joined as always by my co-host, Brash. What's going on, Cowabunga, dude?
Oh, Cowabunga. We're back again.
I prefer Cowabunga. We're back again for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. This one was directed by Steve Barron, by writers Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They are actually the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's starring Judith Hoag and Elias Coches as April O'Neil and Casey Jones, respectively. This one was our Portalies pick, which means our community picked for us to do this one. More specifically, Boreal Seth, thank you, from our Threads community. You suggested this one, and our community voted it as the one they wanted us to do. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a movie that features 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, believe it or not, that emerge from the shadows to protect New York City from a gang of criminal ninjas. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the characters of Raphael and Donatello. More specifically, in our Popcorn Perspective segment, we're going to be doing our Real Deal segment, and we're going to be talking about our most valuable takeaways. So let's get into it right now. Our Popcorn Perspective segment is where the hosts take one character from the media each and analyze the development and growth throughout the movie. We express to our co-host how this character should have been viewed in your opinion and the meaningful connections the character arc has to the themes or the plot of the movie. Brash, before we get started on our specific turtles, let's have a little bit of a talk about the turtles in general. So all 4 of them put together, they're very different, aren't they?
Yes, but I have opinions.
Yes.
Or thoughts,
Mm.
which will lead into my topic. Very
Good. Okay, so my favorite thing about the turtles is, so everybody knows I'm a classroom teacher. A lot of people might ask, to get to know somebody, what's your star sign? Or they might ask you, what's your favorite color? But one thing I always ask
Who's your favorite
students, exactly, what's your favorite turtle? And the reason I ask that is because I can get a really good read on what that kid is like based on the turtle that they enjoy. So if they're a kid that really likes Donatello, for example, they might be into gaming, or they might be into computers, or they might be into, and they might be very, very kind as well, because Donatello's very, very kind. If they like Michelangelo, they're obviously into a little bit of fun. Like, there's just some psychological...
skateboarding, surfing, that sort of sporty sort of stuff. If they're Leonardo, more serious, probably...
leadership orientated, likes taking charge, or captain of a football team or something like that. And then Raphael, obviously, you've got all your...
violence.
Yeah, you're...
Just bad apples.
Yeah, all those kids that need a little bit of support. And or, conversely as well, sometimes Raphael is the character that sensitive kids like as well.
As I say, like the ones that have that tough outer shell, but soft and gooey in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they all have their different kind of, and that's the appeal of the turtles, is that they're so different. They all have their different skills and strengths, and kids are drawn on, people are drawn to a different one. So it's very good to get to know somebody if you want to talk to them about their favorite turtle. So Brash, who's your favorite turtle?
Mine's actually Donatello.
Oh man, my little brother Dylan, shout out Dylan, how you going, buddy? And my son River love Donatello.
Yep.
And you know what? Growing up, I thought he was the least popular turtle.
Yeah, really? Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, I can sort of also see that. Who's your favorite?
My favorite turtle, growing up, always was Leonardo.
Yeah.
The way that I liked Leonardo was because he had the best weapon. He was obviously in charge of the turtles, and he was very morally correct. I have a very strong sense of justice. Whether that's good or bad, that's just where I align. But since I've become a man and I'm watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I actually like Raphael a lot better. Yeah,
he has that sort of, and they do show it in a lot of the shows where he goes from, like, he's got the heart at shell, but he's probably the more sensitive of the lot. Like, out of all of them, he's probably the most prone to cry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I like him too, because looking at him, I can see that, I have a pretty sensitive temperament, and he also has a pretty sensitive temperament. And the reason that he seems so aggressive outwardly is because he has a lot of emotions, and he's trying to
bottle them up.
Yeah, he's trying to deal with them in the best way that he can. So that's my transition with my favorite sort of turtle was Leonardo, now Raphael, and I know psychologically why I was drawn to them too.
Yeah, like Leonardo has to be like he was always my second favorite, and then Raph. I hated Mikey.
Really?
I thought he was just annoying.
He's never been my favorite, but I never hated him.
Well, I wouldn't say I hated him. He was just my least favorite because I thought he was more annoying than anything else.
Yeah, he was a
loud.
liability.
He was loud.
He was a liability to the team.
And that as because we've both been watching Black Clover lately.
Yeah,
Asta's the same.
Exactly.
I'm like struggling through it. I've already watched it all before, but I'm struggling through it again. But I'm like, I forgot just how fucking annoying and loud Asta is always.
Exactly.
And I think it's just gotten even more for me since I've gotten older and gotten grumpier. That like loud noises just piss me off.
Yeah. In terms of Michelangelo, when they're representing him in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie or TV show, there is definitely a fine line. And I've watched some representations of Mikey where he is just absolutely annoying, can't stand him.
Yeah.
But then there are some times where he is just enough to break the serious tone of whatever they're trying to do.
And I find that in the 2003, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated show, that one there, that's when I actually was like, oh, yeah, he's not bad.
Yeah, he was a spot on, I reckon.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, yeah. If you're going to watch any Turtles, guys, go out and watch that TMNT from 2023. And this one, in my opinion, the 1990 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But we have digressed.
We must digress.
We have digressed. This is our Popcorn Perspective segment, and Brash has picked Donatello to talk about in terms of his character arc, and I have picked Raphael. So, Brash, would you like to take us away with Donatello?
So Donatello, he's the, well, they would say the more intelligent, tech-savvy turtle, hence why, as you said in that last episode, how he's got the stick, because Splinter wanted him to be more simplistic because he's always into fancy gadgets and everything like that. They don't do that in this movie.
They don't. I actually don't see him with a gadget
all.
Or inventing or on a computer at all. The closest we get to it is the middle scene on the farm where he is helping Casey Jones fix the vehicle.
And he has no idea what he's doing.
Yep.
Like, to fend off like teenagers. But realistically, if you were to take Donatello out of that movie, I don't think anything would change.
I kind of agree with you there. He's definitely the most underdeveloped turtle. I think he and Mikey sort of sit together a lot because they're almost the lighter tone.
Yeah. And that's my second thing. I love the fact that in this, they seem very teenager. All of them seem very teenage. And I love that because they're meant to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not 30-something-year-old men playing teenagers. And I love that fact. And it comes off like when in some of the childish antics that they get up to and everything like that. And the way they speak and everything like that. And their cockiness and everything. It's just all perfect. But I feel like Donatello is left because there's no specific, and I think it might be because of the sort of the time that it was made, the movie was made, and probably constraints on length
and budget.
They couldn't really do any sort of thing like techie. Like realistically, when he's helping Casey fix that car, Donatello realistically he built their Turtlemobile.
Mm-hmm.
Like he should be able to fix that in a second. Yep. He should go get some paper clips and some chewing gum and turn that thing into a rocket ship.
Yeah.
Like he's
that's his special talent.
He's the MacGyver of the group. He lived in a sewer. He grabs scrap and makes a supercomputer. They don't do any of that in yes, all they really had to work off was the comics and the cartoon, which had some techie aspects.
I think even in the cartoon, he was quite tech savvy.
Quite tech savvy, but they probably didn't. There wasn't really like in the later ones where they had their big turtle computer, supercomputer, and all the hoverboards and everything like that.
Shell phones,
and the shell phone, like
the goggles, and he was always the one in the later cartoons that carried the sports bag full of gear. All the others were obviously travel light because they were obviously offensive or defensive minded for the Ninja Turtles mission. But he always carried a bag of stuff.
So yeah, I understand that, but I just felt like he just didn't get to do
Donnie things.
Yeah, he didn't get to be him. He was just like a secondary Michelangelo.
Yeah, I think so too. He was the one that Michelangelo reacted to Michelangelo's jokes.
Yeah,
and Michelangelo and Donnie were there to offset the tension that was there between Leonardo and Raphael. I think like they always portrayed Donatello as the smarter, more nerdy turtle. And they did kind of have a tiny little moment of that at the very start when they're trying to riff off their new catchphrase and they're saying like,
and all it was to make fun of him.
Exactly.
Because he like used some like flashy word and they're like, what?
He's like bossa nova and then they turn around and make fun of him.
Yeah.
And then it's like Chevy Nova.
It's
almost like,
he's just like, excellent.
Yeah. It's like how the nerd of the group doesn't really get the social context and doesn't really get the like the in words at the time. So they turn around and look at him as if to say like, that's not popular right now, Donnie. Like that's the only really thing that you see that develops his character a little bit in this movie.
It's more making fun of him because he's a nerd.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that shows him his nerd is him being made fun of.
Yeah.
So that was like my sort of like my take on Donnie in the movie, which was a little bit disappointing because when I was rewatching it again, I was like, it's Donatello. Sorry, not Donatello. It's Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Michelangelo too.
Yeah.
Because like him and Mikey were always together,
buddied
buddied up, and they like when they had the dancing scene with the tequila, they were the ones dancing together doing the tequila. While this is one of the things that freaked me out the most was Leonardo when he was just sitting there, like
twirling his hands.
I'm like, guy, stop, guy, stop. No, that's weird. And then Raph went off to see the movie, but it was just always Michelangelo doing Michelangelo things, and then Donatello sort of being like that nerdy younger brother that has to try and follow behind the cool and agree with all the cool things that the cool brothers are doing because, he doesn't want to seem like the nerd. And yeah, so that was a little bit disappointing for me personally, but because Donatello's my favorite. I love it. But yeah, that was my take on that, which was disappointing. I loved the fact that they were teenagers and they acted like teenagers and they seemed like teenagers, which is the whole point. I don't like the fact that Donatello, for me in that movie, he wasn't Donatello.
Yeah. And I can see that. And I think that, it might have something to do with the budget constraints, this being only made on a $13 million budget and most of it being geared towards the suits and the animatronics and hiring all the actors to actually bring those turtles to life. Maybe they didn't have enough time to develop his character, and because it's only a 94-minute movie or something like that. And, we have spoken before about how movies that have multiple characters find it hard to develop a lot of them significantly. It'd be interesting to see because I actually have never seen Secret of the Ooze, but I have obviously seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time.
I've seen them all, but honestly, I couldn't tell you what happens in the Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, I think maybe
I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, maybe he gets more development in that space there. But yeah. I agree with everything that you said, Brash. I think he's not the Donatello that I know and love. And you might say that the things we love about Donatello may have only developed in the later cartoons and movies and stuff, but he's definitely that way inclined in the comic books too. He's the tech-savvy turtle. He's the one, that's the thing. And, all of the action figures that came out in the 80s and the 90s always had Donatello with various different tech gear. So it was definitely part of his character that was missing from this movie. Absolutely agree. In terms of his arc, usually in this part we talk about his arc, he didn't really have an arc.
No, he didn't. He was just always the turtle that was just there. That if someone needed someone to reply off of, like have a reply from, or just someone there, like if someone's to acknowledge what's being said in to further progression of the story, he was there.
Yep.
But other than that, he didn't really have any sort of plot points. And Mikey's almost the same, but Mikey has that comic relief sort of role.
Purpose, yeah.
And purpose in the whole movie, because I feel like out of all of them, it's more about Leonardo and Raphael, and
their conflict
usually is always the case.
Mm-hmm.
I find when it comes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's always Raph and Leo as the mains.
Well, they sold the most toys.
True. Well, because they get all the screen time. But understand, and they're always the ones that are fighting over who gets to be the leader. And then Mikey's always Mikey's a funny one, so people are drawn to the comedy of him, and he's always the one trying to cool the heads between Leo and Raph. And then they're always Donatello's just even in some the later ones, they're all fighting and Mikey's trying to break him up, and he's off on his computer doing computery shit.
Yeah,
and not even involved in that sort of thing at all. But
I think it's funny that if how we were talking about Donatello being the sort of nerdy outsider of this crew of turtles.
Makes sense.
Well, in the latest one, Mutant Mayhem, you see Raph, Donnie, and also Mikey banding together a lot more and poking more fun at Leo because he's the one that's always saying we need to follow what Splinter's telling us. Yeah. So it's funny how that cultural shift has happened over the last 35 years where the turtles represent the teenagers where, being a nerd or being tech savvy like that, it is kind of ostracizing, but now it's following the rules, I guess you could say, and what the adults tell you, and not wanting to sneak out at night and using your phone past curfew is the thing that is. Yeah,
so the more straight-laced, serious one now is one that gets made fun of.
Yeah.
Sort of in the Marvel movies, how they all make fun of Captain America for not swearing and not swearing and all that kind of stuff, being the stiff, straight-laced person.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting cultural change. But in terms of Donatello in this movie, I absolutely agree. No arc. Sad enough to say, I don't think the movie would have changed very much if he was in it or out of it. They probably could have saved a little bit of money on having a suit and animatronics for him, but
just have a head on a stick that sometimes pops out of the corner or something.
Well, maybe
like that.
That's what they were doing in the scene with the car, because you only see his left arm and his head.
Yeah.
So maybe that was actually just those parts of the turtle there. All right. Let's go into my turtle, which is Raphael. So as we spoke about, Raphael is definitely the most hot-headed. He's the most emotionally impulsive. He's the most aggressive. Anger is something that isn't second nature to him. He kind of revolves around that space of feeling a feeling, reacting to a feeling. And he's always really presented as the turtle that is cool but crude is what they say in the 1987 cartoon. He's exemplified by a struggle with internal conflict. And that's how we meet Raphael. And he's always the one that's kind of alone from the other three brothers. And Splinter actually says this in the movie where he says, anger clouds the mind, turned inwards. It is an unconquerable enemy. You are unique among your brothers, for you choose to face this enemy alone. But as you face it, do not forget them. So he's always pitted as the one that's by himself. We see him putting the trench coat and hat on at the start of the movie where he's going out to see various different movies when he is angry at something.
Fun fact, though, the movie that when he comes out and it's the Creatures movie, that was actually going to be a bad suit because at the time Batman was just coming out.
Oh, the 89 Batman.
89 Batman.
Yeah.
So there was going to be a reference to him going and seeing the Batman movie, coming out and saying cool car shit costume.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of those scenes were actually shot in New York, but with that, it actually exemplifies one of the many times in the movie where Raph actually goes out on his own because he's feeling a big feeling. Like he's feeling angry or he's feeling upset or he's lost his sigh.
He's angry with himself.
He's angry with himself, very self-critical. He's the one that has a lot of the dialogue scenes with Splinter, and he's also the one that probably has the most growth through the movie. In the second act of the movie, it's culminating to the point where he goes and does angry gymnastics out on the roof and is spotted by Casey Jones, and that's what instigates his spectacular beatdown that actually causes him to be indisposed for the middle part of the movie. It's where the turtles really learn, okay, we need to actually gather around Raphael. We need to help support him in his internal conflicts that he's having. And it's also where Raphael learns that anger isn't a strength when it's left unchecked or when it is outwardly expressed in an uncontrolled way.
Yeah.
Strength comes from lessons of emotional intelligence and being able to, be vulnerable, show that raw emotion, but also realize that his isolation and refusal to listen to his brothers is a danger for himself and his family as well. So when he learns that, he's then able to come up with different sort of outlets for his anger.
Speaking on Raph, how they just threw him in that bathtub.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hilarious. He's got like one arm hanging out.
Oh yeah, in the
He's
recovery position.
All one arm hanging out. He's like legs all twisted up and shit. And then they come in and like gets a cup of water and just like sprinkle it on his arm. Yeah. It's like the dude's like he'd wake up with like every part of him being sore from the way he is positioned. It is horrid.
And there's also the scene where he falls from the roof through the glass onto the antiques shop floor, and you actually see him bounce a little bit, and they come over and comfort him, and they push down on him, and you can tell that that's like a rubber mannequin and not really the actor. But yeah, I think that through that, it's definitely like a bit comical and 90s aged, you might say as well.
But no, don't put him in the bed or anything. Like I know he's a turtle and needs water for some reason, but like the thing is like. None of the other guys, you don't see the other guys sprinkling water themselves, but that made me giggle a bit when I saw that again.
But in that scene, and when he wakes up and then ends up reconciling with Leonardo, who he's constantly at odds with, that's when he starts to accept his family. He learns not to suppress his emotions, but he learns to channel them constructively. And at the end of the movie, he's not really an emotion, like he hasn't lost those emotions. He's still definitely a sensitive sort of person, but he is leaning on those that are around him, and he's also learnt some skills and some trust in his family to be able to be himself, show those vulnerable aspects of him, and channel them into strength that way, instead of isolating himself, being angry, and then lashing out and being thrown into a bathtub in a very unceremonious way. But yeah, I think that that biggest thing for him is by the end of the movie, he learns that element of trust, which is his growth through the film as well. So he definitely goes through the most, and that's similar through a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stories, isn't it? Raph's usually the 100%.
And it's always Raph and Leo fighting, and it's always Raph coming to terms with his anger issues, his issues.
And in the 2007 animated movie, they actually physically fight on the rooftop, Yeah,
Raph, because Raph is dressed up in his
Nightwalker?
Nightwalker.
Something like that.
Something, yeah. Get Up, which is really cool.
It's really good. Like that movie is actually not too bad.
That movie, that's one of my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
And also, I'm pretty sure Leonardo is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal in that movie as well.
Yeah.
great voice actor, amazing. But yeah, his arc in this, in the 1990 version, is probably my favorite part of the movie. And I also love his friendship with Casey Jones and how that develops as well.
Because they've always been the closest friends, those two.
Because they're very, very similar.
Yeah.
And
they're both children that use aggression to...
Yeah. And I think that's why he is popular to a lot of like young boys, because not only do they see a little bit of themselves in him, but they also can see like the way that he presents strength.
Yeah.
I guess you could say. And you might, like looking back now, because he was the toughest turtle and he was the one that was outwardly angry a lot of the time, you might liken it like to the Incredible Hulk, where the Hulk uses his anger as an outlet and then goes and smashes stuff, which if we're looking at a psychological perspective and the way we're sort of trying to parent kids and teach kids, like that's not very constructive. You can't really do that. Like if you get angry, you have rage rooms and things like that.
I was going to say you have rooms for that.
Yeah. But in generally speaking, it's not really the way that you deal with anger. However, the way that Raphael deals with anger in a lot of these stories where he does have those outbursts and he does make mistakes, but he always comes back to his family and always tries to, internally work on it through his emotional understanding of himself and others. That's sort of more like a healthy sort of push. It's funny though, because when you're emotionally heightened, you have two options. Like when you're feeling emotionally stressed, do you know what those two options are?
Let it out, bottle it up.
Well, yeah, you can do that, or like fight or flight, basically. Yeah. So he can fight, verbally outburst with his brothers, and then flight, which is run away, which is what he does all the time.
Yeah.
So he will go and avoid. And, you can take some time to reflect and time to take it in and process what you're feeling, but there's also that reconciliation that has to happen afterwards and that understanding, which he never gets because he always gets beaten the crap out of by foot inches of Casey Jones. Which is kind of like a consequence, I guess, a natural consequence to his inappropriate outbursts of anger. He always gets beaten up.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson for Raphael and why he ended up going through the arc that he did. All right, let's get to our real deal segment. All right, this is our real deal segment where we randomly select a criteria or lens to view the movie through. We discuss its elements with the intention of finding out whether it can be rated positively or negatively. Each week we name these criteria as positive or negative with a fun element of the focus movie. Topics can range from cinematography, character development, all the way to villains and themes. Good rating this week, Brash. Cowabunga.
Cowabunga, man.
And then bad rating is late pizza. Never pay for late pizza. Let's generate our first real deal segment, remembering that good rating is cowabunga and bad rating is late pizza. All right, so our first one is the dialogue. I might start with the dialogue here, Brash. This is probably my least favorite aspect of the film.
Same.
Yeah, and the dialogue.
Oh, it just didn't make sense.
I know, but do you think that's because we're out of time in this?
Well, because I often wonder. Really, because I sort of grew up we grew up on this sort of thing. Realistic, like it is a little bit before us, because we were born
in 1990,
1990 when it came out. But like, I grew up on the 87 cartoons, and like I found some like it's just some of the lines just
one-liners,
quite fit.
Yeah, they were over exaggerated, and obviously trying to pay on that teenage sort of surfer vibe that's made famous by the Ninja Turtles cartoon in 87. And I don't think it doesn't feel organic, which is funny to say about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but you want the dialogue to flow and tell a story and feel organic. But a lot of the one-liners were put in there for either comedic effect or to show that like radical sort of language that these people use.
Because I remember, because I got most of it, but I remember there was like one scene at the farmhouse, and I think it's either Mikey, I think it was Mikey, said a joke, and so everyone was sort of like smoking and giving. I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, that's my fear about a lot of the movies that are coming out now that are having pop culture references that are relevant to the audience today.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the way that they hold up in 35 years' time, obviously there's jokes that they make about, I think it's Cheney was one of the impressions that Mikey did. That's probably absolutely hilarious in the 90s. I have, like, that's lost on me. And then, some of the you can tell it's sort of geared towards adult, because when they're talking about April and Casey's romance, he says, see, it's exactly like Moonlighting, which is a TV show that was around during the 90s starring, Bruce Willis, and it was like a romantic TV show.
That's the line I didn't get.
The Moonlighting one.
The Moonlighting one.
Yeah.
I was like, so like Moonlighting, I'm like, yeah, because I don't know, I didn't know about TV show until just now.
Yeah,
But like Moonlighting, I'm like, Moonlighting is just like working a separate job at nighttime.
Yeah.
Like-
No, it's a TV show. That's the thing. That's what I mean. Like, there's a lot of 90s references in it, but I'm sure it was
because
good at the time.
the way I heard was moonlighting, as in you do a second job after your job at nighttime.
But then, on the flip side of that, they had some of that, like, one-liners and now out-of-date 90s pop culture references. But then through the middle act, April just dove into these elements of exposition, like she was writing a journal in her 12th grade formal. The turtles are feeling so remorse. They are four again, but not full, and all of that kind of stuff. Like, it goes from that, like, tubular and excellent and all this teenage sort of stuff, and then it
to Old English,
overly expository from April.
Old English ink and quill writing.
And it's almost like, they are specifically doing that so we can get the exposition that we need, which doesn't feel natural in a story like this. So.
Yeah, like that's so how when they had Splinter talking to the young kid, that was great because it was Master Splinter shedding wisdom.
All fathers love their children or something like that.
And he's talking to me. Then when he comes back there the second time, and he actually starts talking about the turtles and everything like that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Master Splinter in this one. Master Splinter, even though he looks, like we talked about the turtles being,
he looks like he's been through it.
I do like that about this movie though, that he looks a little bit different and he looks like he's been through it and he's got that wet appearance all the time, like a sewer rat. I love that. But one thing about a Splinter character in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles always has to be wise and warm. They're my two musts for Splinter. He has to be wise and he has to be warm. Not warm as in a warm hug, but like he has to be kind and nurturing and caring. And when he's going through that dialogue with Danny, I think because he's that kind of mentor, he's warm and he's wise. It comes off as like a natural conversational teaching moment because it fits the character.
Yeah, it's the same when he's talking to April.
Yep.
When April first wakes up and he's able to calm her down.
Mm-hmm.
And
Raphael as well, after he comes back from his movie and he's beat down with Casey Jones, he sort of talks to him and then, you go into the origin story with
he's like, oh, I lost my son. And he's like,
let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It's fine. We'll get another one.
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah, he's always that way inclined. But I feel like the dialogue with Splinter was good. But yeah, for me, this is a late pizza for the dialogue. What about yourself?
Yeah, I have to agree. Late pizza. Like some of the lines, like really cool. Like the initial, like the first time, where they're like, where Donnie's trying to fit in. He's like, excellent.
I think that was a Bill and Ted reference.
Yeah, and like that whole sort of first part, I thought was really good. Them getting the pizza and everything. I thought that whole first section part. But when they actually started diving into the actual movie and then had to add context for the movie is where I think they slipped because they're trying to add context to like because it's such a dark movie, which I don't like, which is I think another reason why the dialogue failed is because it's such a dark, heavy movie. Although I think the director sort of leaned it towards that way. But then you got these lighthearted characters that are all like surfy and
Mikey never really pulled out of the he never pulled out of the campy, quippy comic relief dialogue. He never and that's
and the whole movie turned dark and serious, and then you got these teenagers that are still trying to be teenagerish, and they're trying to explain all these serious events that are happening, and
about their father figure and mentor possibly being dead or murdered or taken,
and they're all losing hope and everything like that, and this just doesn't quite translate because they're still
making jokes over April and la-laing over her and
and the only serious scenes you have is like the bonfire, like the campfire scene when they're all like
and you see the turtles shed the tears,
shed tears and everything like that, and
someone cued the dropper on that one. It's just like cue the dropper.
It's like tears, but then you look at their faces and they still look like horrifyingly fucking happy. Yeah, because there's no sad. There mustn't be a sad
function on the
animatronics.
Like a plane goes over.
So I'm like, the only reason why you can probably tell us they're sad is because they're going
sniffing,
and then there's like a teardrop down the eye, and you're like, oh, they're sad. Yeah. If they didn't have that tear, I would have noticed.
All right, so you're rating a bad pizza?
Bad pizza.
All right, sweet. Bad pizza for the dialogue. Let's get our next one for our real deal segment. All right, our next one that we have generated is the action sequences. So this is where we're talking about like practical stunts and the martial arts sections of the movie. I think I read somewhere that the martial arts sections were all performed by the stuntmen in the suits, obviously, and they filmed it at a slower speed and filmed it up so it looked like they were moving faster. You could definitely tell in a few of the scenes. Yeah, in a few of the scenes you could definitely tell, especially one where Donatello was in the antique store and spinning on his shell and knocking people over. And another one when they were doing a lot of the roundhouse kicks, you could definitely tell that they were sped up as well. That being said, these suits, I believe they made a secondary suit that didn't have a lot of the animatronics and rubber stuff in it, so they could move a little bit more fluidly. And as a result of that, they were able to get some of the combat scenes off. One thing I did like about it is sometimes in a low budget movie, you don't see a lot of people fighting on the screen at once. Whereas in this one, we got some pull away shots where we got to see a lot of the turtles fighting shell to shell. You got a different sort of view on various different settings and scenes where you could see different parts of the fights happening in different areas and times.
Yeah.
I have a real soft spot for this kind of combat style because it reminds me of the early Power Rangers stuff, which I absolutely loved, and the early Power Rangers movie, which I loved as well. So I think for me, they're slower, they're exaggerated. I'm probably going to give this a cowabunga with a smell of late pizza for me. I think there were some good elements and some bad elements. I think they overcame a lot of the like the fight choreography was good. I think they overcame a lot of the technical aspects of having to fight in these cumbersome objects that they were using to make it look like, you know, they were okay. My biggest pet peeve with it was I was waiting for the end scene where they're facing the Shredder, where the turtles all learn that they're stronger together because that's that's Splinter's ultimate lesson. They're stronger together when they fight as a team. And then, you know, they go at him one by one at a time, one in. And then, you know, eventually it's Splinter that comes and saves the day. I think it would have been better for me as a moral kind of lesson if they all sort of, I'll say jumped him. It's not very honorable, but there's 4-on-1 and they fight better as a family. So I would have loved to see that, but I didn't. So for me, it's a cowabunga with a hint of late pizza. What about you?
So I agree with everything you said, and especially the Power Rangers thing. Like I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is Power Rangers. I understand. You can see like the missed kicks, the missed punches, and then the bad guys, like the punches going past, and then they're like, a split second later, they're like, oh, I got hit. And then they do the whole twisted move and jump out of the way thing, which is like watching it, I was like, yeah. But for me, I have to actually give it a bad pizza.
You mean late pizza? There's no bad pizza, just late pizza.
That's true. Late pizza. Yeah, it's a pizza with anchovies for me.
Yeah.
I have to agree with what a lot of the critics said about it, that there was too much violence in it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of them taking on 20 people in this crowded room with those 4 turtles in those suits, just have, I don't know, 5, 6, and actually have
a combat
instead of just a mishmash of just random making a swing and then someone saying, like, just someone being there and having to jump out of the way thinking they got hit. Like, instead of that, like, if they were more focused, and because like you got Tatsu is like one of their big henchmen, having like a one-on-one with him, or like having like, or even having like, say, Tatsu and 2 others that are similar strength to Tatsu in a way, and having those 3 fight the turtles in more of a personal fight, I think would have been more beneficial.
Or even just a Raph and Tatsu showdown, which then led to him being thrown through the roof. Even that would have been good instead of him being jumped by 10 to 12 foot ninjas.
But that fight I didn't really mind that much because there was the one turtle against a lot of guys. And that for me is fine. But when you had all 4 trying to maneuver those, especially when they're inside the building, trying to maneuver all those guys around in that one space, it just become cluttered and
claustrophobic.
You could see more prominently. You could see the Power Rangers fighting, where you could tell that he kicked and was nowhere near the bad guy, and the bad guy went flying. It was just so prominent. I think from back then though, that was probably more.
I think that was
normalized.
That was the rage.
It was.
And you know, the foot ninjas seemed to be ineffective and almost like laughable in the fact that we're calling these things ninjas and they're literally running towards turtles and getting kicked away. It was more for the effect of it, I'd say. So I agree.
They're meant to be all trained by both Shredder and Tatsu.
Yeah.
And for them to actually wear the mask, they have to pass a certain sort of like your belt
initiation,
grades. Yeah. So they've gone from like being the white belt all the way to black belt
to the white with yellow tips.
Yeah. They're like meant to have gone to like from being just kids on the street, white belts, to black belt ninjas, and they're pretty much just all useless, like the putty men from Power Rangers. But for me, I didn't like. I think for the combat scenes, I sort of fast forwarded through a lot of the combat because I was like, boring.
The combat scenes in a movie, you really want to build tension.
Yeah.
So you want them to sort of ebb and flow in tension until it gets to a sort of critical mass point. And I don't think these fights were really choreographed in that way to do that story-wise. I think they were choreographed to show flips and kicks and awesome stuff, which is very reminiscent of Hong Kong cinema martial arts movies, which is what this was funded and backed by as well.
And they always tried to, like, they're always saying quips and one-liners throughout the fights.
That's a comic book thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was so drowned out from the actual amount of shit going on the screen that I couldn't even tell you one quip that they came up with when they're fighting, because all it was just an overload of just people on the screen randomly getting flung around everywhere, and then one of the guys would say something, you're like, oh, what'd you say? And like it just gets drowned out with all like the other music, the fighting effects and the fighting noises.
Yeah,
it all sort of just drowns it out.
Like a mishmash of various different elements, which really left the combat feeling ineffective, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Or in other words, late pizza.
Late pizza.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So for the next one, let's get it up. And the next one that we have up is the tone of the movie. So the word unique comes to mind for me. So they obviously had two different IPs to draw from when they were making this movie. They had the 1987 cartoon and they had the comic books, and they are completely different tonally to each other. And I think Steve Barron, when he was directing this, obviously wanted to do a darker element to this movie in terms of, you know, the dark themes in this movie, where there is elements of torture, there's kids smoking, there is, you know, it's basically showing a predatory kind of figure creating a gang out of wayward teens, which is also not so nice tonally. There is street crime and all that kind of thing that really points to this sort of darker vibe, which is very reminiscent of the comics. But then there are those adult comic book readers that would want to go and see this movie. But then the most successful thing about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was obviously the cartoon and the toy line, which was making lots of money. So the kids were also a bit of a pull and an audience to come to this Ninja Turtles movie. So tonally, if you're trying to make this, you're going to disappoint either one or the other. And I think Steve Barron tried to get the best of both worlds in this. He tried to mesh both of them together.
And that doesn't usually work out too well.
Doesn't usually work out too well. So you usually get the people who love the darker, grittier elements of it, and then the people who love the comedic sort of slapstick moments of it. I think this one, it does it okay in terms of meshing those two things together. What are your thoughts? I
don't mind the like kids smoking, playing billiards. It's a very Pinocchio themed sort of thing. And I thought that was fine. I thought that was like the whole thing of like, come children, you can do all this adult stuff, drink beer, smoke, freedom. Do whatever you want. It's, you're free to do whatever you want. Your parents hate you. We love you. Like that sort of exploitation of movie, is something I liked. There was parts like when they're robbing April O'Neil's van, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill her." I'm like, "Ooh, okay, that's a bit."
Like it jumps to 1,000.
Yeah. It goes from quick, she's seen her, gotta get her, or something like that, or we need to tie her up, or something like that, or keep her quiet, like that. No, it's just like, I'm gonna kill her. Yeah. It's like, ooh.
It's a bit radical.
Yeah, it's like going from like 1 to 1,000. But and there was those moments there. And even like down the subway when April gets slapped the shit out of, it's like, damn, I can sort of see why the actress for April was like, didn't want to come back and was like, no, this is probably a bit too violent and dark for me. And like, I can see that, and it would work for, I don't know, like a different kind of movie, but you're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
Teenage is in the name, having all these extremely adult, violent aspects to it. I think sort of just ruins that teenage part, and I think is why like a lot of the dialogue sort of doesn't mesh up, as we said earlier. Tonally, like the story is good.
Well, that's a lot of the actual story beats were taken straight from the comic book.
Yeah, so that's I think the story was really good.
It's well written.
But I think they were right in when they hired the director. The direction of it, I think, was a bit off.
In terms of the IP and in terms of Steve Barron's vision, they fired him obviously because there was a tonal imbalance between the audience's expectations and his production that he made. I read somewhere as well that they released this movie to a film festival audience in Las Vegas, and the crowd was filled with like adults and obviously a large smattering of children that were there, hype trailers. They got like a little snippet here and there. Everybody was wondering what these turtles would look like on the screen. And then they'd watch the movie, and you know there were parts that they obviously loved, and then there were parts that they didn't like. So it didn't really get a full cowabunga from any of the audience members, old or young. And because of that, it got middling and conflicting reviews. Yeah,
and I reckon some of the darker like themes to the movie, and then seeing the turtle, I reckon some of those younger kids probably got scarred from watching
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, there was actually a darker scene as well, like when Tatsu was beating the crap out of those foot ninja children to teach them discipline.
Yeah.
Apparently in the original script, it was scripted that young foot ninja was supposed to die. And then in post-production, they added the vocals afterwards to say, oh, is he breathing? Yeah, he's breathing. Oh, he'll be okay. Like that was added in after because everybody was like in screenings, they're like, that is way too dark.
Yeah.
For this adult person to kill a small teenage kid.
Yeah.
In a Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah.
So
I understand he wanted to go a darker route, but I don't think Ninja Turtles is the way to do it.
yeah, well, at least not when the fan base and the IP sits from the 1987 cartoon, and you've obviously added elements of that cartoon in the movie, which feeds into the children that are fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wanting to go and see it.
I mean, if at the point the storyline of the Ronin was around, hell yeah, he'd be jumping all over that because that's a very dark toned.
Yep.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And then one thing that they kept in that was very surprising to me was after Splinter knocked Shredder off of the roof, he gets into the garbage truck, and then Elias Coach as casually as Casey Jones just presses on the compactor,
and
crushes the man, just committed murder. Everybody cheers. It's and you can see how parents of the 90s, who let's say they might have been a little bit less liberal than they might be today, probably had a bit of a problem with some of the things that are in the movie. So I think for me, tonally, I respect what they tried to do. And I do like the tonally dark comics, and I also like the tonally light cartoon. However, it's like red and green in the washing machine. Never the two should they mix. So for me, for this, it's going to be a late pizza.
Yeah, I'm the same. Late pizza. I'm the same. Like the story as a whole is good. I just think they should have picked a lane. Either
That's a good comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it light or go dark.
Yep. Well.
Like you're always going to disappoint someone thinking that you're not is just.
I think the confusion of this one and the tonal confusion of this one led to the poor audience reception of number 2 and number 3, because you'd have those people that were expecting the darker tone going in and getting a very child-centric slapstick comedy version of the Turtles, reminiscent of the cartoon.
And I love 3.
Yeah.
I love 3. It's probably my favorite out of the 3 movies.
Yep. And I think that they definitely have their audience in their space too, but I think the confusion of number 1 and the tonal difference is what set those two up to not be as successful as the first.
Yeah.
So,
But I still love the movie.
Same.
And love the Ninja Turtles, but I think
pick a lane.
Yeah, pick a lane.
All right, let's get to our MVTs. Our most valuable takeaway segment is where we discuss the most important thing we learned from the media that we have watched. It could be something that extends our knowledge or something that we can apply to our life. It can be as simple as a piece of dialogue that stuck with us, or a thematic or moral lesson, or a technical piece of cinnamon that we want to discuss. Most valuable takeaways, Brash. Do you want to go first or me?
You can go.
All right. So with me, the thing that struck me the most in this movie was the importance of positive role models for shaping the youth. So most notably, we have two, like gender doesn't really matter when it comes to role models, but in this particular movie, we have 2 male role models in the form of Splinter, who represents wisdom, discipline, and genuine care, like we said before, wisdom and warmth. And then we have Shredder, who is very much about exploiting vulnerabilities and fuels misguided loyalties. 2 very different kind of mentors. So if we're talking about Splinter, he's patient, he's compassionate, he's unwavering, he's got this moral foundation. His approach to teaching the Turtles is all about respect and honor. He always wants them to apply their strengths, unique and individual strengths, but he also tells them that their greatest strength comes from each other through brotherhood. He honors their self-discovery, allowing them to, explore various different strengths of their own and also weaknesses. He encourages them to face their fears. He nurtures them in a fatherly sort of way, and he teaches them self-control and responsibility, which is all of the hallmarks of a really good role model for youth children. Like he's stable as well, and he's consistent. And that's the best parts about Splinter. And then if we flip that coin and look at Shredder and the Foot Clan, a lot of his clientele, will say, are lost youths or children. He presents a very predatory look at mentorship. And you can see that he's Danny is the perfect example of the kind of clientele that he has in this movie. So if we're looking at the character of Danny, he's lost, he's searching for belonging, purpose, and power and control. And that's something that a lot of young men, a lot of young teenage men are looking for, even in today's society. It's not something that's culturally lost in the 90s. It's something that they're definitely looking for. And the Shredder sort of gives them that illusion, that seductive illusion of freedom, like we said before, giving them exactly what they want, giving them a place where they can, be themselves, in quote marks. However, there's a hierarchy here. It's got undertones of obedience that needs to be controlled through servitude. The roots of that leadership is like a facade, basically. And it's most poignant in the scene where Shredder says, you are here because the outside world rejects you, and this is your family now. So he's already trying to prey on that sense of isolation amongst these teenagers. And obviously, that is when Danny sort of starts to question his choices about joining the Foot. And I think that it's a really, really, really good takeaway in terms of what positive mentorship looks like. And a lot of people should be warm and wise, like Master Splinter, instead of predatory and power hungry, I guess you could say, like the Shredder.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my takeaway. And especially looking at a lot of society these days in terms of like where people fall into youth crime or where people fall into gang culture or different kind of ideologies like that, that kind of mentorship is really needed. And I kind of have had a little bit of experience in this in terms of like my teaching profession. There was a little fella, obviously we'll keep it confidential, but a little fella who throughout his whole schooling time was very mistrusting towards a lot of teachers and authority figures just because of how he was. And I think that he was outwardly aggressive, a lot like a lot of these Foot ninjas were, and Raphael as well. And he would like curse and use poor language and things like that. And he'd always abscond from classrooms, never feeling like he belonged. And then he was put into my class. So it was really, and I knew about all of this sort of thing with him. So I knew that the biggest thing that I had to do with him was value connection over correction, which is the approach I kind of took with him. So I wanted to know who he was to start with. I valued the fact that he was a person who had strengths of his own, and he definitely had some weaknesses. And I didn't look to correct any of those weaknesses or help him along his learning journey because there was already a mistrust. So the thing that, like one of the first things that I did with him was I'd talk to him about some of the things that he was doing wrong away from everybody else. Like I gave him the respect of a conversation between two instead of correcting him in front of a whole class of his peers. And just that little shift alone of looking at that respectful relationship is what kind of started to show him a little bit of success in that space. So I think that like the Splinter as a mentor, if nothing else from this 1990s movie and all of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is something that can be looked at in university degrees for teaching.
Yeah.
But that's my takeaway. I think that Splinter is a really good mentor.
Oh, 100%. And like in every adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splinter's always that, like, when you have like, whenever he's making speeches to the guys, you're always yourself, zoned in to what he's saying and sort of hyper focused on what he's saying because he's always spouting that.
Yeah,
that
life
wisdom.
Advice that you could put on like a bumper sticker or something.
Yeah,
I think
they got that eat, live, love sort of thing, or eat, love, pray, whatever it is. Yeah, they need to have like Splinter quotes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I've got two least favorite versions of Splinter, and it's obviously the Michael Bay version where he just doesn't seem warm. He's wise, but he's not warm towards his sons. He's very actually disciplinarian towards his sons there. And then also, it's probably my least favorite part of the Mutant Mayhem, the most recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, is the depiction of Splinter in that one, because he's a little bit goofy for one, but he's also very neglectful. He's like neglectful. He just watches TV. He doesn't notice his sons are gone. He does still try to teach them family, but he's less of an influence on them than he had been previously. So yeah, I think Splinter in this,
because he has to watch his stories.
Yeah, he has to watch his stories. To. Splinter in this movie is probably my favorite.
Yeah, prime example.
Splinter.
TMNT one as well.
Yep. Yeah, and he was the primary vehicle for the plot too. He was obviously captured by the Foot, which made the Turtles need to want to go and
rescue him.
And if he was a really crappy mentor and he went and was captured, there'd be no reason for the Turtles to want to try and find him. But you can see that connection and that fostering that he built. So Splinter, legend. That's me. MVT.
MVT. That is a very good MVT.
Thanks, man.
Mine's a little bit more simple.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's just family.
Yeah, that's not simple. That is absolute. That's foundational for Turtles, man. I love that.
No. But
and Fast and the Furious.
they've ruined family.
Yeah.
They've ruined family for me. Anything like to do with family, I'm like, all I can hear about in my head is
Dom Toretto.
well, no, it's not even that. It's like the Family Guy version of him. Family. Anyway, yes, no, but I saw a lot of my own family actually in their sort of dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
So my family, we've had our ups and downs with each other and that, but we've always, if any of us always hit our low point, we'd always be there to help each other.
Yep.
I'm not going to go too into it for their sakes, more so for mine. But like for me, because I always lived away from my family pretty much, because I moved up sort of north with my mum when I was young, and my oldest and older brother stayed in Victoria. And it's always been like that. When my mum moved back down to Victoria, I stayed up here, and I've pretty much been up here for the rest of the time. And I might see my family once, maybe a year if I'm lucky, but like it's always good to go down and see him. But in the similarities is like we fight and like we can say some nasty things to each other, but we'll always come back to each other and
But if
help each
anyone
other.
else said anything nasty about you guys,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, yeah, we've always got each other's backs, no matter what we've done, how much we've pissed each other off. When one of us is down, we'll help the other up.
Which is very like foregrounded in this Turtles movie as well, because you know they do have their differences, positive and negative.
Raph is sort of like that black sheep.
Yep, Raph is that black sheep. Falls in the bath in a very falls into the roof.
That's exactly what my family do to me too. They just throw me in the bathtub all fucking mangled up.
Yeah, it's like he'll be fine.
He'll be
Take a shower.
He just needs a cold shower.
Yeah, give him 24 hours. But yeah, I think that the way that the Turtles rallied around him afterwards, and you can see how lost they were without him as well.
Yeah.
You know, they would then, like Donatello, for example, latched onto another, we'll say, masculine sort of figure in the form of Casey Jones.
Casey, yeah.
Because he didn't have Raphael.
Yeah.
Leonardo really dove into his training and disciplined himself and really kind of focused on the next thing that he could do, like really trying to correct the mistake.
And sort of like, again, not going to go too much into it, Donatello's like sort of blaming himself for what had happened to Raph. With my own family, there was a point there because I was up here. Oh, no, I was in Victoria at the time, but I couldn't help a family member out at the time, and my other family members went and helped instead of me, and I sort of felt useless at the time.
Yeah.
And sort of how Donnie sort of felt, how Leo felt when he was sitting in a chair, basically just staring at Raph, not knowing what he can do to help and feeling sort of pretty much just useless and lost, not knowing what to do until he finally goes out and meditates and contacts Splinter. Yeah, and it's those sort of parts. And like you got Donnie, like, as you said, latching on to Casey, trying to sort of take his mind off of, I guess, what's going on.
Or feel something similar to how he feels when he's with Raph. It's like that comfort. Yeah.
And then Mikey's just pretty much making jokes about everything because that's his deflecting sarcasm. Deflecting the actual pain and trying to, I guess in a way, try and keep everyone's spirits up when everyone's spirits are broken. And like, especially in large families, like everyone sort of has a role like that in the family.
Yep.
It's like, I know like my oldest sister, she's probably like the Leo of our family. Like she's always one we go to when we need advice.
Yeah.
She's always one, like she'd organize like all the Christmases, all the presents. She doesn't really do that anymore for us because we're all adults, so we should be able to do it ourselves. But we still when it comes to Mom's birthday, I'm like, oh, so what are you doing for Mom's birthday?
Yeah. What are we doing? What do I need to do?
Doing? Can I give you $50 and just chip in?
Yeah.
Like, and stuff like that. Yeah, she's definitely like the Leo. And I think like my brother is probably more Raph, I would say.
Yeah.
Raph. And then my younger sister is probably a little more Michelangelo. He's sort of instead of being like funny, she's more of the, but she's more of like has done a lot of silly things.
Okay. Yeah.
But
we all have.
We've all done silly things.
Yeah.
But, so we've all sort of got our own sort of parts. I'm the sort of Donnie, the nerdy outsider who like lives away from family, like is always away from family. So, and yeah, because there's four of us and I've got my stepbrothers and everything like that. But I have our four main family like siblings. Yeah, I can see sort of each of us in the Ninja Turtles. So yeah.
And you know the good thing about the Turtles is that like they're obviously flawed individuals, but together they're kind of strong, which is Splinter's lesson as well, you know, and that's very common in a lot of sort of families. Everybody, and we're all very self-critical of ourselves more than anybody else in the whole entire world too. And I think that, that formula of family that comes in through the Turtles is why it's generational as well. So if you're talking about this being in the 1990s, being originally created in the mid 80s, there is almost a new iteration of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Because it's such a popular thing through so many different generations. And it's because of that central theme of them being a mismatched family where everybody just sort of comes together in times of need, but also has their weaknesses that they're working on that is then strengthened by the others that are around them as well. And also accepted for the good and the bad of them, and the place to belong, which is important too.
Yeah, and there's not too many solid media out there that has done that over that expansion of time.
Yep.
Like you do see it in like long running series, is like been many adaptations of like say Street Fighter, and there's been movies and cartoons and all kinds of things. Same with Tekken, but nothing probably as prominent as like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
Like they've had 5 different or 4 different cartoon series. They've had
multiple movies,
4 different kinds of movies now. You got the Michael Bay one, 1990s one. You got the TMNT one, and then you've got the newest one.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't really say that to too many other types of media.
Yep.
The only thing they haven't really had is a decent video game.
Yeah, that's true.
They've had the old arcade video game, which is pretty sick.
Yeah, I play that with my son actually. That's the first video game he ever played.
Yeah. And
he was like 3 when he started. And yeah, that's how he started to love Donnie, because no foot ninja could get to him because he's always got a massive one stick. So
yeah.
But yeah, I like you said that this wasn't a very in-depth one, but I think it's actually central. I think it's core, and it's a reason why the Turtles have survived for this long in pop culture.
Yeah, well, the values that they actually portray, and the different emotions and the different lifestyles that they each have appeal to pretty much everyone.
A lot of different people, a lot of different kids.
A lot of demographics. Like any person any sort of turtle probably they're missing is an emo turtle.
Yeah. My thing as well before we sign off is shout out to single parents, because like Splinter's been doing it, raising 4 boys for 35 years or however long the Turtles have been around, and he's raised 4 incredibly awesome young men. So yeah, I think that even that blended family kind of approach, it shows that a family can look different to your family, but it's still a family that's just as loving, just as awesome, has just as much potential to be successful, even though it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful about the Turtles too. It's because they're all considered freaks, but they're together there. And, they start to, and Casey Jones in this movie actually starts to question that as well. He looks to the foot ninja and he says, "You call this a family?" Yeah. And for a fact that he is feeling part of the family amongst a rat and his 4 boys. And April, who they've adopted as well. Yeah. Like, you don't get more ragtag than that.
Yeah, you're like, call this a family? No, this is a family.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I love that. Let's put this on our Fandom Portals honor board. Hosts rate the media and place it on the Letterboxd honor board. This board can be followed, tracked, and found on our Letterboxd, which is at Fandom Portals if you wanted to take this one.
2.5.
Okay. Yeah. 2.5.
And that 2.5 goes to pretty much the story that could have been, and all the values from the actual movie.
Yep.
Everything else was a bit average.
Okay.
Dialogue.
Yep. All right. So for me, I'm going to give it a 3.5, and I'm giving it that because of the relationship between the Turtles, like that whole found family vibe. I really, really like. I think the story was solid. I respect the ingenuity of Jim Henson's Creature Shop to create the animatronic Turtles. I think the actors overcame a lot of adversity as well. And it's a story, like I watched it this week, and it holds up as a movie. They did it on a shoestring budget as well for the time, $13 million. They worked really hard to get it done, but then also they have the elements of the dialogue, the action sequences, hit and miss for some. The villain of the Shredder is sort of like, is this a totally bad movie or is this a totally good movie? Like, anyway, I reckon 3.5 out of 5. So let's put it on our board. This movie collectively between Brash and I gets a 3, which means it places. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, made in 1990, directed by Steve Barron, is going to be our 8th placed movie on the Fandom Portals honor board. It's going to sit below Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and above The Nice Guys, which sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Yep, very cool. All right, so that is where it sits on our Fandom Portals honor board. Let's do our sign-offs. right, everybody. We do have a brand new website, which is www.fandomportalspodcast.com. Make sure you go and check that out. We have all our episodes on there, as well as some blog posts associated with the episode. You can get all your geeky information from there and everything Fandom Portals related. You can contact us for a movie recommendation, or you can give us some feedback on the show, which we always love. If you are feeling kind, you can also go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us an honest review. 5 stars would be good, wouldn't it, Brash? 5 stars would be awesome.
That would be great.
But only if you really feel like it. Definitely go and check those out, guys. If you have a longer form question, you can email us, which is fandomportals@gmail.com. We love getting feedback, guys. And also join our social medias, which is Threads, Instagram, and Reddit. You guys can be a part of our daily posts. We can shout you out on the show as well. Next month, Brash. Next month, we have some exciting stuff happening next month in April. This being our last episode for March. The Avengers Doomsday cast was released.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Lots of names.
Lots of names.
Yeah.
5 hours of just chairs.
What a way to release and keep people in caption.
Hours of chairs.
I know, but you know the funny thing about it, though? That broadcast got more viewers than the Avengers Infinity War trailer did. So people that say that Marvel is dead are pretty well mistaken, because I think there is definitely still a fan base for it and people are excited for the new Avengers movie. So as a celebration of that, Brash and I have decided to make April our Marvel month. So for the month of April, we're going to be doing exclusively Marvel content. The movies that we'll be featuring, we haven't decided yet. One of them will be picked by you, and look forward to that. So
Howard the Duck.
We're not doing Howard the Duck. I don't think we could talk about it and maintain a listenership, honestly. Not because, it probably has its plus points. We'd probably rate something positive about it, but there's some things on there that I just don't want to touch on. I can't believe. Did you know it was George Lucas?
Yeah.
Before we mentioned that in the last episode?
Yeah.
Crazy times. I don't know. Man, what was he thinking? He needed a palate cleanse after Star Wars. This is Aaron signing off. Have fun, be safe.
This is Brash signing off. Cowabunga, dude. Bodacious. Bitchin'.
Excellent.